welcome to another episode of the Emerging Market Entrepreneur. I have with me my co-host Alexander from Cinque Terre in Italy. Welcome, Alex. And
how's it said?
A very special guest today. We've got Dov Girnun here from, he's the chief executive and founder of Merchant Capital in South Africa. So Dov, thank you so much for being with us on the show.
Great to be here, guys. Thank you.
Fantastic. So let me kick things off. As we were talking before we started recording the program, the last couple of months has been an absolute nightmare for a lot of entrepreneurs because of the various phases that we've gone through. First the lockdown, and then kind of trying to figure out how to run a business with no revenue, and then managing costs. What has just been your experience over the last couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were talking about it earlier. So it's been a one in 100 years pandemic. Who would have ever thought that we would have had 2020 would have been the year that it has been for everyone. And I think it's it's been a year that has kind of brought us back to our founding DNA, if you will. And we've had a lot of introspective discussions with myself and my co-founders and management team around the founding principle of Merchant Capital. And I think it's one of these pandemics that kind of force you to do that kind of level of thinking, and that may be from a business perspective, it may be from a personal, family, social perspective, etc. So I think that it's really taken away a lot of the noise, if you will, that we have been that an entrepreneur experiences, and brought us back to kind of broad principles. And we've gone back to our roots and really why we started the business and how we can help, how we can better support SMEs, because that's really what the founding principle was, is providing easy, frictionless working capital to entrepreneurs to help them grow. And I think in this environment, that founding principle has never been more true and has never been more needed. The 80%, and I'll get into the detail later, but 80% of our portfolio was basically put into lockdown and was deemed non-essential. And we had to make some very difficult and, I guess, robust business decisions about how we treated those customers and what we did. And in retrospect, the decisions that we made in March and April of this year were the right decisions. But I think at the time, we were kind of spitballing because we didn't know how long or how deep or how terrible or how good or how bad this thing was going to be. So I don't think we're out of it yet, unfortunately, but at least we can kind of see the wood from the trees now.
Absolutely. And so as a funder of SMEs, you've probably seen a lot of various business models and a lot of companies. What kind of companies have done well during this time? And the reason I ask that is that you actually see that digital businesses have really thrived during the pandemic. And what kind of companies have struggled to keep their doors open?
I think it's a great question, and it's something that we've spoken about a lot, because as we try and curate our strategy in a call it a post-COVID world, it's about what kind of businesses now do we want to fund and do we want to support, and that was very different, by the way, 6 or 8 months ago, because, as I said, no one would have envisioned this 1 in 100 years type of thing. So, the obvious ones would be the businesses, who were already set up from an e-commerce perspective, who didn't have to have a bricks and mortar presence, who were able to send their staff home and be as productive and efficient remotely, and really those businesses that, unfortunately, were probably the worst hit, and call that travel, hospitality, eventing. Those businesses we've seen suffer the most. But even in, call it food and beverage, which is a big, which has been a big focus of ours, and we've had lots of success funding restaurants over the last 7 or 8 years. We've seen some businesses that have been able to pivot very early on into, from a very bad situation. So, one kind of springs to mind as I'm talking about it. There's a small little restaurant up the road from our house where my wife and I often go for a walk. We take our kids and we have coffee or breakfast there. Now, that business was a typical sit-down restaurant. they were deemed non-essential naturally on the 26th of March when we went down into level lockdown, into lockdown 5 or 1 or whatever it is. I can't remember the numbers. Sure. This business owner decided, that he wasn't going to just take it lying down, and he basically recalibrated he basically changed the entire shop and created a deli or a grocery store. He got a kind of an essential trading license because he was selling sanitizer and whatever it may be, and he created this almost like a deli or a grocer in the restaurant space. He managed to keep a lot of his staff. He got a lot of the supplies to come and display at his business. He created a dark kitchen in the back in his kitchen. As soon as kind of restaurant delivery started, was opened up again, he was the first one who was doing Uber and Mr. D delivery. So, I know there's lots of examples like that, but here is a perfect example of a business owner who just kind of saw the opportunity. And that business, we went there very often. And I'm not sure, if it was completely COVID safe because it was so busy. And there were lots of people, and obviously people were wearing masks and sanitizing, but it was inspiring to see how quickly this entrepreneur and business owner managed to pivot and change the business. And he didn't have to go from making scrambled eggs and toast to developing a cure or a vaccine. It wasn't such a big pivot. He just really used what he had and what he knew well. And that business is continuing to doing very well. And I was there on the previous weekend, and it's now back to a sit-down restaurant, but he still retained the deli part of the restaurant, which is really busy, and the dark kitchen is still going. So he's actually incrementally added to his business. He's now has the baseline of the sit-down restaurant, but he's got 2 additional revenue streams from the deli and from the dark kitchen. And that for me is just one simple anecdotal example of a success story of a business owner who didn't take this whole pandemic lying down.
Well, that's actually quite inspiring. Just as a side note, did you also happen to fund this business, or is it just one that you frequent?
So we funded them when they were under their previous ownership. So the current owner is not a client of ours. I hope one day he will be. But we funded him. We funded the previous owners.
Right. So we were just talking about, you said that you sort of seen the kind of businesses you do want to fund in the future. Do you want to maybe elaborate a little bit about what those businesses are and what they would potentially look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can with pleasure. I mean, I did touch on it earlier, Sid. It is the businesses that are, able to innovate, who are agile, who could find kind of opportunity in the chaos, and who knows what this new world looks like. So I can't say at the moment, because I don't think anybody knows. And, at the moment, it seems to be, 3 months ago, people were saying restaurants will never be the same. There's been a structural shift in how restaurants will operate. I don't know, Sid, you're in Joburg or Alex, what you're seeing in Italy, but in my mind, restaurants are back. There's no structural shift. I mean, tonight, my wife and I are going on a date night. I try to book a restaurant, a favorite of ours in Parkhurst on 4th Avenue. They're fully booked. I said, dude, it's Tuesday night. I want to come at 7 o'clock. Just for a glass of wine and some Greek food. They said, we're fully booked. So in my mind, which is quite amazing, and I'm really pleased to be, saying this, is that there has not been the big structural shift that people envisioned. I think people, as in consumers, such as you and I, we are social animals. We want to go out. We want to let our hair down. We want to eat good food. We want to socialize. And that is what restaurants, and I'm just talking about restaurants because it's close to my heart, but that is what restaurants offer, right? So the businesses that were able to kind of retain their good staff, were able to, hunker down and kind of cut costs, but just able to navigate the 3 or 4 months that needed to be closed. Those are the real entrepreneurs that we would want to back. So I don't want to box it into a type of business, because I think that anybody can say we want to fund an e-commerce business, and that's easy to say. But it's really more about the philosophy or the attitude of the entrepreneur, irrespective of their business.
So I watched another interview of yours from a few years ago, and I think you were talking about how you differentiate yourself from the banks in terms of your
Yes,
criteria and what you look at. And one of the things that you look at is the point of sale data, and I think that's fantastic
correct.
because it does give you a very good sort of data set to make decisions on in terms of frequency
Mm.
and volume and things like that. How do you see technology evolving or playing a more meaningful role in how you filter and determine your investment criteria?
Mm. Yeah, so I think there's going to be a greater move into, digital transactions, to kind of broadly group that. I do think that, and I've seen it myself, is that these card not present or contactless
Hmm.
payment methods are going to finally get some real traction. And there I'm talking about your Snap scans and Zappers and, kind of MasterPass and Apple Pay and all those type of things. Every restaurant or shop that I go into, I'm always saying, can I tap, or can
Hmm.
I pay with SnapScan? And I think that's just going to be, it's going to be a further drive away from cash, which was already happening. I just think the rate of change, may have been amplified or accelerated. But with regards to merchant capital, we will continue basing our data analysis and credit scraping of whatever data sets that we've got on using our technology. And the greater the adoption to kind of digital payments, the more of the ability or the greater the net will be for us to be able to fund these businesses. Typically, if we wanted to fund a spaza shop in a township, because they were 80% cash, the cash is basically unauditable, because guys use
Hmm.
cash to pay salaries or for personal expenses or whatever. But I think now, as even the small, the kind of micro SMEs, as we call them, move away from cash and into these mobile wallets and etc., that net will now be open for us because all we need is the data. So once we can get verified digital data, we can make credit, we can feed that into our credit decisioning models, which help us lend to these businesses.
Absolutely. And so I think I'm gonna throw to Alex in just a second. So over the last couple of months, what kind of advice do you have for SMEs and entrepreneurs and kind of like people doing business in this environment? If you had to synthesize it into one takeaway.
Yeah. I think going back to what I said originally is making sure that you're going back to your core reasons and DNA and principles, founding principle of why you started this business. So I think that for me has been, the most important thing. And kind of having that North Star is what's really important, because you're going to have these really difficult days, and now so more than ever. And if you don't have that North Star, and I'm even talking as a leader now, so we've got 55 or 60 staff, this has been an extremely difficult leadership lesson for me personally and for my team, because we've never had to lead in a crisis before. We've never had to lead a team remotely. Our culture at our business has always been built on, social interaction and kind of energizing each other. Now, all of a sudden, we've had to find a different way of building and sustaining our culture and leading and energizing our team and cascading that down from an exco level all the way down. So without having that North Star and without having that founding principle and reiterating that to your entire team and partners and stakeholders and clients, etc., it's very easy to lose your way. So I think that for me, if I can synthesize it in one sentence, sorry, it's been more than one sentence, would be that.
Great. I mean, a great start. What is your number one North Star metrics if you're talking about North Star?
It's about helping as many SMEs as we can to help them grow. So that is really what the founding principle was, is providing easy, onboardable financial services products that can help entrepreneurs prosper and grow.
All right. So so that's the number of, basically, if I drill it down to one KPI, it's the number of SMEs you help, or the transaction volume?
No, it's number of SMEs, and that because that will cascade down to book size and revenue and profitability and all the other metrics. So we funded now 10,000 small businesses. Some of them not so small, but we've helped 10,000. and we want to get to 100,000, and there's absolutely no reason that we can't.
That's great. Printulu has helped 15,000 entrepreneurs or small businesses so far. So I know the feeling of now trying to get to the 6 digits. Great. Let me go back a little bit. So you talked about basically this anecdote of a restaurant owner that's really pivoted. But,
yes.
In order to be able to pivot, and in order to now, after you've pivoted or after you've sustained yourself, I think many entrepreneurs, while the economy is opening up and regaining traction, is really okay. But now, how do I get back to pre-COVID levels? Do you have some specific advice on what you would do, or some tactics, some strategies, some structural changes that you've seen that you would do in order to get back on track?
An obvious one for me, and it's close to my heart, is around the people. So if there ever was a time to kind of get rid of call it dead wood or passengers in your business, kind of COVID has been, the perfect opportunity. I'm thankful and proud to say that we have not retrenched one person, and that's because we think every person in our business adds value. And if we didn't, this, as I say, this would have been a perfect time. So make sure that your core team, whether you've got 50 people, 550 or 5,000, make sure that every one of those people are adding value, because what COVID has taught us is that whatever you predict and your strategy and your forecast and your budgets, that can be thrown out of the water very easily. So that's the first thing. The second thing, in our world, would be make sure that your partners, shareholders, investors, stakeholders, wife, husband, whoever is in your business, is strongly aligned to what it is that you're trying to do. And I'm thankful to say that we have had incredible, in the most part, support from our shareholders and board. There's been covenants which have been breached all over the world. There's been, and I'm just talking about, there's been insurance premiums that have lapsed. There's been loan repayments that have had to be forgiven, etc. And this is the time where your shareholders, I guess you would see the true colors of your partners, shareholders, and investors, and make sure that they are aligned. And again, similar to my previous point, is if they're not, like your staff, get rid of them. Because this is the time to kind of clean up your internal and external stakeholders. I think that the other thing, Alex, for me would be trying to put yourselves, this is the most important time to kind of put yourselves in the shoes of your existing and prospective clients. Really listen to them. Try and understand what it is. I know none of us can predict what this post-COVID world is. As I said earlier to Sid, people thought people wouldn't go back to restaurants. And my example of on a Tuesday night, I couldn't get into a restaurant. I don't think anyone can forecast or predict exactly what it is, but we can all make relatively educated guesses around what is going to happen, and try and create product that can, or services, or whatever your business is, to try and plug that gap or fulfill that need. And don't try and do too many things, because then you just lose your focus. So what we've done as an executive team is we've gone back and we've looked at it and we say, what is our real competitive strategy? What is our winning moves? What are we really good at? What are we not good at? And trying to, clearly articulate and simplify what that is, and then just go and execute on that. And that may be, in the restaurant example, it may be, forming a dark kitchen, because you already had talented chefs and kitchen and infrastructure. In our example, it was like, how do we create SME lending products or credit products that can help businesses such as our clients grow? So I'll give you one example. Restaurants are a big part of our business, and we launched, I think it was on the 1st of June, we launched a product called Reboot by Merchant Capital. And essentially what that product was it was for all our existing and new restaurant owners, which gave them between 50 and 100,000 Rand with no credit application, that allowed them just to reboot their business. So that would mean doing a deep cleanse, to get your staff back, hiring some delivery, onboarding with Uber. This is when kind of delivery or curbside pickup was allowed. And the the engagement and uptick on that product was massive, because the banks certainly weren't lending to these guys at that time, and their cash flow had been basically zeroed out for the past 3 or 4 months. They've been using money to pay for bond repayments or vehicle repayments, whatever it is that these entrepreneurs needed. And there we created a product after speaking to our clients about, what is it that you guys need? We need 100 grand to just restart our business, restart our restaurant, restart our shop.
Do you have a good way of actually getting to what a client wants? Like, how do you speak to client? Is it customer surveys? Is it one-on-ones? Is it, I don't know, you go to your favorite Greek restaurants with them?
Yeah, I think there's a multitude of ways, and we've done everything, right? So we've done online surveys, we've done focus groups. We have something called business boosting workshops every quarter. So we will invite 50 or 100 of our top clients, and we'll invite a really great speaker. We had the founder of Sorbet, Ian Furr, to come and talk about culture. We've had the MD of Uber Eats to talk about why you should have delivery. So depending on who it is, and that really builds loyalty and kind of great dialogue between you and your customer base. What we've also done, which actually was really fascinating, and I absolutely loved this, is when we were recalibrating our strategy at the beginning of 2019, so the beginning of last year, we actually got anthropologists into our business. And the anthropologists went for 6 weeks and spent time with our clients. So they either did it as mystery shoppers, so they would go and sit in a restaurant, or they would go sit in a shop, or they would go sit in a hardware store, or they got, or they did interviews and they traveled to lots.
That's a really interesting way, huh?
Yeah, and the results were fascinating. They were absolutely fascinating. And what we did is, out of that, we actually then categorized our merchants or our clients into different personas, and we now have 3 or 4 different personas. And obviously I'm not going to go on too much about it because it's going to bore you, but essentially, like, there's like a planner Pete, as an example. So planner Pete would be someone who won't just take funding off the bat. He wants to plan. So he's got a refurbishment to do in 12 months time. He's going to go to his bank. He's going to look at his funding options. He's going to come to me. So a real planner. And then what we actually do is we curate specific content, whether it's digital, whether it's push marketing, whether it's phoning them up or whatever, for that particular type of virtuoso or that particular type of segment. So I think you can do, there's lots of different ways to do it. And we certainly don't profess to be the professionals, but we've really found a great way to engage and communicate with our client base to get real live feedback from them, and then use that feedback to create products that they actually want, not what we think they want.
Okay. So let me go back into some of the hard decisions that you had to make, or the hard things about the hard things. What are some of the hard decisions that you had to make? I assume you had to let some of your clients, you had to decide whether they go bankrupt or not.
Yeah, so look, as I said, when we went into lockdown, 80 to 85% of our client base, which is a big client base, was deemed to be non-essential. So their doors were shut completely, and they had active loans with us. So we took a decision at that time to give every single one of those clients a payment holiday. So we basically said to their client base that for so long as you can't trade, we will not collect. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the detail of the construct of our product, but the way our product works is that we hold back a fixed small percentage of every future card transaction in order for the loan to be repaid. So the fundamental, or the kind of USP for the product, is that the repayments fluctuate directly in line with how the business trades. Now, never in our wildest dreams did we think that the business wouldn't trade for 4 months, but that is the principle of our product. And we stood, kind of true to that, in the sense that for the 4 months that the business didn't trade, we collected 0. And it never cost the business owner more, just the term of the loan got extended. So that was one of the hard decisions, because 80% of our revenue was automatically switched to 0. And it was a big decision. And
yeah, and it must have stressed you out
totally.
big time, because it's a big burn on your on your P&L.
Massive burn. And I can tell you now, a lot of our competitors or colleagues didn't do that because they didn't have the, you know, so fortunately we had the liquidity, the solvency, and the cash to do it. So we kind of did some scenario planning, and we knew that we could last for 6 or 8 months, whatever it was, I can't remember, without collecting any revenue. We were fortunate, you know, and I don't think some of our colleagues or competitors or other people globally could do that. So we were fortunate that we could do it. It still was a very difficult decision because, you know, we had no revenue. 80% of our revenue was going to be essentially frozen for, and who knew how long in April? Could have been 3 months or 3 years. I mean, you know, we kind of didn't know. So, you know, that was one of the kind of the big fundamental decisions. And I truthfully believe that brought us some real loyalty and credibility with our client base, because it was a real show of good faith that we're in this together.
Yeah. And now you've basically said, I mean, first of all, I mean, I think everyone in South Africa should really applaud you on your decision on a very bold move, and trying to assist the whole ecosystem. You're not only assisting yourself maybe in the long run, but you really assisted the whole ecosystem. So I think here, on behalf of every our listeners and on behalf of all entrepreneurs, I just want to say really, really great move, sticking to your roots here.
Thank you.
Really, really amazing decision. But let's get more into the decision making that went into this, and you've said basically your decision to fund businesses has shifted. So on the one hand, you've got the technology that's sort of assessing who do you give loans and who you don't give loans. On the other hand, you basically say that agility and how innovative an entrepreneur is as important. But these are soft factors. How do you do this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, one can't measure. There's no metric for innovation, right?
I mean, I don't know of any. Maybe you can teach us.
No, unfortunately, I don't. It's something you can't measure, you know. So, but I think the point being, or the point I was trying to make, is that it's a combination. So we kind of use the objective data, which is the transactional data, the margins, the turnover, profitability, liquidity data. And in times like this, we have to overlay that with subjective data. And that subjective data would be, you know, how did this entrepreneur behave during lockdown? Did they just go home and lock their door and close their restaurant and fire all their staff? And, you know, or did they try and, you know, make it work? Because you got to think, if you're an entrepreneur like this restaurant up the road, if he made it work in these times, the chances of this guy succeeding is, you want to back this guy for the rest of time, right? You know, and as I say, I wish he would come to us for money, but, you know, he hasn't yet. He may. But, you know, so you're right. It's a combination of subjective and using one's intuition in times like this. I mean, sorry, just to finish the point, is that pre-COVID, we had a product which was completely digital and was completely objective. And why? Because we had data for the past 5 years of what this business owner has been doing. It was quite easy to predict what this business owner would do for the next 6 to 9 months. In April of 2020, all of that data became irrelevant because nobody had data to show how a business was going to transact over a lockdown or a COVID pandemic.
And so if you have some really tangible advice in order for an entrepreneur to get funding from you, I mean, what should an entrepreneur do? What sort of structure should the business have? What focus should it have? And also what sort of strategy? Multiple income streams, for example, is one of the things that you've mentioned before.
Yes. Yeah. So I think let me answer that this way. In a pre-COVID world, you know, in order to kind of get funding from merchant capital, it was pretty simple, to be honest. You know, we had about a 70 or 80% approval rate. And, you know, that was based on a business that had typically 12 months of trading history. They did, you know, a minimum of call it 50,000 Rand through their point of sale. They did lots of transactions through a point of sale device. and it was the owners were South African residents, so we could do your normal credit check. So that was really it, right? And but the advice that I had, that we always have for entrepreneurs is, or what we've seen is, that owner managed businesses are always more successful. So if the owner is in the shop every day making sure that everything is working well, is much better than a manager who is frankly just on a salary and can't wait to get out of the shop to get home. The ability to find opportunities within your industry, adjacent opportunities within your industry, is really important, and probably more important now in a COVID world. And also just having a real good understanding on the finance and unit economics of your business. And very often what you see is a lot of these business owners, such as restaurant owners or hairdressers or whatever they may be, are very good at their job. They very often are not financially astute, and that's just kind of the way it is. So it's about having a partner who understands your income statement, who understands your margins, who understands your supplier payments, etc. Just having a handle over your finances. We've often seen it, unfortunately, that great entrepreneur, brilliant chef in the kitchen, or person that cuts hair, they just don't know how to run a business. And that's obviously, and that's often been the demise and the failure of that business.
Great. I think, Sid, it's your turn now to say. We're almost running out of time, but
you know me so well, Alex. Yeah, we are running out of time. But before we wrap, I think before we started, Dov was telling us a little bit about this deal with Discovery. Let's use this opportunity to prod a little bit and find out more about that. So, Dov, over to you. What's happening with Discovery?
So I can't say too much about it yet, just because we haven't gone public. So we currently have a strategic relationship with Discovery Insure, where we offer our cash advance product to their SMEs who are taking up Discovery Insure products. But during this COVID pandemic, a big opportunity to provide a credit product to the medical health professionals has come up, because, as you would imagine, like all other businesses, your local GP or physio or chiropractor or dentist, whoever it is, has also taken a hit. So we, together with Discovery, are in the process of creating a really exciting and we think impactful product that will be specifically for medical professionals. It's a space that we've wanted to get into for a long time. We've just never really had the opportunity. So we watch this space. I'll be able to show you more once it's out there. But it's a perfect example of where we've taken a big opportunity that typically in pre-COVID, we wouldn't have been able to execute on. We've spent the time in COVID developing and originating it and working out a partnership, and we'll be launching this. This call it medical credit product in the next couple of days. So really excited about that opportunity.
Fantastic. Well, Dov, thanks so much for your insight, and look forward to connecting with you again very soon.
Brilliant, guys. Thanks for having me on the call. Enjoy and good luck with all your ventures. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dov. Thank you, Sid.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.